All right, Mountaineer fans, we're going behind enemy lines with this one as the TCU Horned Frogs are set to come to Morgantown for a visit at Milan Puskar Stadium this weekend, a 6 o'clock kickoff for the Mountaineers and the Horned Frogs. And we're going to give you a few numbers, a few things to know to get familiar with this TCU team coming to town. We got you set here on Mountaineer Moment. This is the Mountaineer Moment, your source for all things West Virginia football and basketball. From pregame to postgame coverage and breaking news, we've got you covered. Let's go. All right, again, welcome in everybody to Mountaineer Moment, episode number 52 here behind enemy lines for the TCU Horned Frogs. West Virginia football set to host them coming up on Saturday, October 25th. It'll be the Mountaineers' first home game since they hosted Utah about a month ago, September 27th, in that game that was one to forget, as they have been thus far in Big 12 play for the 2-5 Mountaineers, sitting at 0-4 in conference play. And the competition doesn't get any easier. TCU sitting at 5-2 on the year, 2-2 in conference play. And they're just kind of on a seesaw so far through 4 games in conference play, as TCU going with a loss, a win, a loss, and a win to get to where they are in conference play. I'm going to tell you a little bit about this TCU team so that we can gear up together for exactly what the Mountaineers are going to be facing this weekend, and some numbers, some guys to keep an eye on. We did this last week with UCF. I just enjoyed it, giving you a few numbers to know, to be aware of with this visiting team, and so we're going to do kind of the same format if you watched that one last week. But again, episode 52 here on Mountaineer Moment. If you are new, or if you have yet to subscribe or hit that like button for us, please do that. It helps me, helps you, so you can be in the know, and we have new content coming your way. And we're going to jump into it on this kind of a shorter episode, Behind Enemy Lines TCU. First thing, to get to where they are today. So much like UCF, who we talked about last week, they were perfect through the non-conference. TCU jumped out. I remember that game against Bill Belichick hit to start his collegiate era at UNC, and TCU took care of them. They also picked up a win against SMU in the non-conference, and then a win over Abilene Christian. But they blew out the fighting Bill Belichick's 48-14, and that was before we knew just how bad that team was. And 35-24 win over SMU. And then there's a few things that changed for them as they went into Big 12 conference play, and it's indicated by just their 2-2 record so far. They got that win against SMU, and they jumped right into the AP poll in time for Big 12 play. They were ranked 24th in the nation in the AP poll, and then they fell on the road to Arizona State, a 27-24 loss. They then bounced back with a 2-touchdown win at home against Colorado, and again on the seesaw, lost to Kansas State 41-28 on the road, and then picked up a 42-36 win over Baylor last week at home to get to where they are today. So not only are they going loss, win through Big 12 play, but they're taking care of business at home and struggling on the road. Again, 2 losses on the road against Arizona State and on the road against Kansas State. And now they're coming to the 0-4, 2-5 Mountaineers for their for their, whatever you call it. What are those? What are the Coal Rush? The Coal Rush game for the Mountaineers, wearing the black uniforms at night, 6 o'clock kickoff. And I don't know what it's going to take for this team to get a spark, but maybe it's going to be those black jerseys to come out and fight and play well. Rich Rod mentioned, a few things on his radio show. I'm recording here on Monday night, but Rich Rod just spoke, a few hours ago, talking about, a lot. I mean, just a lot. Offensive line, talking about recruiting, talking about money, talking about next year, talking about this year, talking about quarterbacks, and that whole situation. But one of the things, too, mentioned was, some of the fight that he's still desiring to see, if you can kind of phrase it that way, to paraphrase from these guys that we haven't seen. There was a lack of execution against UCF, obviously lack of execution, but a lot of mental errors that he said he hadn't seen, in that regard, in specifics, from that defensive showing against UCF that, man, just left you puzzled, because UCF isn't the top of the tier in the Big 12. They came into that matchup on a 3-game skid, 0-3 in conference, and then they just whacked you. So that's the deal. Now your backs are just, against the wall, or whatever you want to say. You're deflated. You come off a bye week, thought you were going to have something, you just didn't. You got embarrassed yet again. You're getting outscored through 4 conference games by over 100 points, and so the margins aren't even close. I kind of sound like I did last week to recap that game, but it's just so true. Like, we're watching a Mountaineer football program that is reeling, that is struggling, that's had injuries and bad luck in that regard, or however you want to describe it. But the product on the field through 4 conference games has been horrendous, and there's no other way to slice it, no other way to look at it. It's been ugly. The good news, probably you would say bad news, is that you still got 5 more games to go, and if you don't figure things out, you're still going to have 5 games, and 2-10 is a very real possibility. I said that last week. But now you got TCU coming to town, and I don't know how to describe that. Like, it's an opportunity to get right, but it's another opportunity that you're looking at where you could get pummeled, right, if you don't turn things around quickly, because this team's certainly better than the UCF team that you just got pummeled by on the road. Now, again, you're at home. Very curious to see what that crowd's going to look like, this Saturday, losing 4 straight, haven't been a home game in a month, and that last home game you had, you got blown out too. Haven't won a game since you beat Pitt, right, which feels like a decade ago, and just a program, a team that's reeling, and then here comes a TCU team that is confident. And again, they've lost 2 games in conference play, but they got a very talented quarterback that we're going to talk about in just a second. They got talented receivers, talented backs. They got some playmakers on the defensive side of the ball that get after it and can cause fits for that struggling offensive line, and can cause fits for the receivers in the on the back end. So there's no relent, right? There's no let up in this Big 12 conference and this schedule. And again, this is a quality, very, very high quality opponent that's coming to town in TCU. And here we go again. Here you go again. You're a home underdog, and rightfully so. You should be. But here we go. Yeah, I'm reminded of like the Three Guys podcast. Brad Howe has said many times. Whatever team is struggling, whatever they're going through, whether it's injuries or just a lot of losses in a row, you're getting beat up, put down, no one's apologizing to you. I think that's a great point, right? If the Mountaineers are going over and pummeling somebody, we're not apologizing for it. That's college sports. And now that we're the team on the receiving end of that pummeling, no one's apologizing to us. There's no apologies necessary. This isn't what this sport is made of and built on, right? This is, you go and take care of business. And right now, West Virginia is not taking care of business, and other opponents they're taking care of them with ease. And so, I didn't plan on going there, but we'll see what product we have of the Mountaineers, what kind of fight we have, obviously, this weekend. But back to TCU, and the reason we're here for this episode, Behind Enemy Lines, talking about what this team brings to the table. I'm going to give you 4 numbers to know regarding this TCU team, and 3 of those are rooted in specific players we're going to talk about, 2 on offense and 1 on defense. That first one is that talented TCU quarterback that's been there for a while, Josh Hoover. That first number we're going to talk about is 21, because he has thrown 21 touchdown passes through the team's first 7 games. Obviously good for 3 touchdowns a game. Put that in perspective, Mountaineers have 4 touchdown passes all season. I think that's a true statement. I'm going to look real quick just to verify that. Mountaineers have 4 touchdown passes all season. Josh Hoover's averaging 3 a game, good for 21 for his season. And so, talented quarterback, again, been there, has had a pretty decent career at TCU, continuing to have success in this season for Josh Hoover. He's got over 2,100 yards. He's still just a junior at quarterback and continuing to make a name for himself. He's played well. He's tied in the Big 12 lead with Sawyer Robertson of Baylor with those 21 touchdowns. And then the only person that he trails in yardage, passing yards total on the season is Robertson of Baylor. So he's second in the Big 12 in passing yards, tied for first in passing touchdowns, and among the nation's leaders in both of those categories as well. So a talented quarterback. Just know that 21 is the amount of touchdown passes that TCU quarterback Josh Hoover has thrown this season. Second number I'm going to give you is with a very, very, very talented wide out for TCU, Eric McAllister, who's been there now, kind of just taking his game to another level with 603 yards and 7 touchdowns through their first 7 games. So a touchdown a game. 603 yards on the season. And to put that one in perspective, which is painful to do so you might want to skip ahead over the next few seconds, but put that in perspective with West Virginia's wideouts. Think about this. 603 yards for Eric McAllister to lead TCU. West Virginia's 3 leading receivers, Cam Vaughn, Rodney Gallagher, and Grayson Barnes, have combined for just 606 yards this season. 3 guys, 600 yards, 1 guy, 600 yards for TCU. That tells the tale of the polar opposites of what these passing attacks have looked like. And so TCU, we're going to talk about their run game in just a moment too, but they've obviously had tremendous success through the air, something that the Mountaineers have just had none of. So tale of 2 different teams in that regard, 2 different tapes. McAllister's 603 yards have him ranked 12th in the nation, and 7 touchdown catches this year, ranked 5th in the whole country. So talented receiver, talented quarterback, and a dynamic duo for the Horned Frogs. All right, 2 more numbers, and then we'll get you out of here. Number 3 on this list that we're running through is the number 4. Jamel Johnson, TCU safety, who's been there again like these other guys too. He has 4 picks, 4 interceptions, and you can bet he's going to look to get some more in Morgantown. Junior defensive back, played a good bit as a freshman, played a lot as a sophomore, had a good season, and has taken his game to another level. 4 interceptions so far this season. That's just one off the nation's leaders. I think there's a couple guys with 5. Jamel Johnson of TCU with 4. And they've got other guys, among the Big 12 leaders in, sacks and, passes defended, all that kind of stuff. So this is a capable defense, and I mean, every team's going to say it, but this is a team again who's 2-2 in conference play, and I can bet you they're thinking as a coaching staff they could be better than that. 3-1 are undefeated, and certainly 3-1, a 3-point loss to Arizona State on the road, in which you struggled mightily to run the football. If you have any success there, might be a different outcome in that one. So we're going to talk about that in a moment, but here's a team that's pretty good. Again, they were ranked in the AP poll coming out of the non-conference play for a reason, and I've dropped a couple games in conference play, but I think they're better than what their record indicates, and West Virginia might just be on the receiving end of that. Just saying. All right, last number I'm going to give you is an interesting one that I did a little bit of research on, just to break it down and see kind of again the tail of the tape. All right, TCU's been really good. Through their non-conference, 3-0, walloping teams like the Fighting Bill Belichick's in North Carolina. And then in conference play, what has shifted? What has changed? Because they've dropped 2 games. Not to say that they're out of contention for this or whatever. They're still sitting at 2-2 in conference. But what's one of those elements that has looked a little different through conference play? And I think I found one for TCU. The number I'm going to give you is 5.2, and that is the average rushing yards per attempt that TCU had last week against Baylor. They averaged 5.2 yards per carry, led by their talented running back Barnes, who had 106 yards and 2 touchdowns. As a team, they had 3 touchdowns on the ground. They carried the ball 38 times, 196 yards, good for that 5.2 average on the ground en route to that, that 42-point, offensive explosion for them against Baylor. But I bring that number up because that's not what it had looked like through their 1-2 start to conference play in the Big 12. So prior to that, they've struggled. They've struggled on the ground. There's no other way to put it. I'm going to show you the numbers to back that up. First 3 conference games again against Arizona State, Colorado, and then Kansas State. They have totaled just 176 yards on the ground. A lot of that's due to Hoover getting sacked a bunch against Arizona State. Arizona State got 6 sacks in that one to really, really deflate TCU's rushing numbers. But they have averaged through those 3 games just 2.1 yards per carry. 2.1 was the number through 3 games, and 5.2 was the number of yards per carry in that fourth Big 12 game, in which they were able to get a win against Baylor. Right, they needed every bit of it. As they won that game just by a touchdown, 42-36. So something to keep an eye on, because the question obviously is, as they come to Morgantown, did TCU really, really, really figure something out in that ground game as to why they were struggling in Big 12 play and figure it out against Baylor? Or is West Virginia going to be able to, maybe, just maybe, have some of the success that other Big 12 defenses have had in stopping the run against TCU? Again, very talented running back in Barnes, talent all over the field. Again, we talked about the Hoover, the quarterback. We talked about the receiver. We talked about some of the pieces that they have on defense that you can bet that West Virginia is going to have to be game planning for. Will it be a difference maker? Will it allow Mountaineers to stay in a game? Right? I said it to break down UCF's matchup. That was a game you were thinking, all right, maybe, just maybe, we're going to hang, and it's going to be a good game against 2 teams that really aren't very good, or between 2 teams that really aren't very good. And it just wasn't that. Mountaineers got their doors blown off yet again. When's the last time you were nervous watching a West Virginia football game? It was against Pitt in the Backyard Brawl weeks and weeks and weeks ago, right? These games have not been close. Really poor performance after poor performance. And there seems to be no light at the end of the tunnel. And so what's it going to look like this week? Who's going to start a quarterback? There'll be more of that discussion later on in this week here on Mountaineer Moment to count down to kickoff like we always do. Several episodes dropping this week. We are going to talk about the Mountaineer basketball program. We've dropped a couple episodes on them, and basketball season's here. We're 2 weeks from tip-off, thankfully, and definitely a welcome thing for us here on Mountaineer Moment, and looking forward to covering Ross Hodge and this basketball team in year 1 for him. Super excited about that, and so be on the lookout for basketball content. Be on the lookout for some more episodes talking about TCU and West Virginia. Set to do battle on Saturday in Morgantown. Again, Mountaineer Moment. This is episode number 52. Please subscribe and leave a like, leave a comment. Love interacting with you guys in the comment section, and just super thrilled, super blessed to be doing what we're doing here on Mountaineer Moment, and hope that you will join in on the movement. We'll see you next time. Let's go Mountaineers.